Hey friends, happy Sunday and welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. This What's for Dinner marks 5 years of uploading What's for Dinner videos every week except for maybe 1 week. I think I only skipped 1 week when we had gone to Wisconsin for my grandma's funeral. But this is video number 260 and that is 5 years. So if you're new here, hello, welcome. I'm Taylor. I share these What's for Dinner videos every Sunday. There's a playlist down below where you'll find 260 dinner recipe videos. I try to share like at least 3 new recipes a week, but I do show y'all everything that we eat so you can get an idea of like what all we're eating, and it'll motivate you to cook more at home and give you some new meal ideas. I like simple and easy to put together meals. So if you're into that kind of thing, I hope you'll subscribe down below. Now let's go ahead and get into this week's What's for Dinner. Friday night's dinner was super easy. We just did chili cheese dogs. I had these hot dogs and this chili in the freezer, so I just thawed them out. And the chili I make in the crock pot, I've shared the recipe for that before. I will leave the video for that down below, but I just heated it up on the stovetop. I like to cook my hot dogs in the air fryer. I do about 8 minutes on 350 and I flip them halfway through. And then I also did some tater tots or crispy crowns in the air fryer. The kids don't really like their chili on their hot dogs, so they just had it on the side topped with some cheese. And then I, of course, had a chili cheese dog. And this was one of the first nights Andy was like really eating some solid food, and he was able to eat a hot dog. He didn't eat the bun, but he ate a hot dog and some of the chili. Saturday night we had Stroganoff. This is basically like a knockoff of the like hamburger helper Stroganoff that I ate growing up all of the time. But I start off with browning a pound of ground beef, and I am adding some onion salt, garlic powder, rosemary, salt and pepper, and then I've been adding the Trader Joe's umami seasoning as like mushrooms and stuff blended up in it. If you don't have that, that's okay, but that's what I do in place of adding mushrooms to my stroganoff. And then I just cook that up until the meat is all browned. And this meat was some ground chuck that I recently got at Kroger, and it's a little bit more fatty than what I usually buy from Sam's Club. So I did have to go in and drain off some of that grease. And when I do have to do that, I usually use a paper towel to just soak up all the grease because it makes it easy. You don't have to like dirty anything else to drain off the grease. And then I am adding a couple cloves of minced garlic to the ground beef and just going to cook that up for another minute. Then I'm going to add in about a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. And then for my liquids, I do 1 cup of water, 1 cup of beef broth, and 1 cup of milk. And then I'm going to add in my pasta. If I'm using egg noodles, I like to do 4 cups of egg noodles. But if you use like elbows or something, I typically only do like 2 cups when I do elbows. And I just press those egg noodles down. It's going to look like it's not enough liquid, but as they start to like absorb some of it and like get tender, they'll kind of like sink it down in the liquid a little bit better. And then once it comes to a boil, you're going to want to reduce the heat to a medium low and cover and simmer for 5 to 7 minutes until the noodles are done. Then once the noodles are done, you can add in about half a cup to a cup of sour cream, stir it around, make sure it's all mixed together really well. And then you can also taste to see if you need to add any more seasoning. I typically end up adding a little bit of black pepper, but you can also taste and see if you need to add any salt or anything else. Then I let this sit for about 5 minutes with the heat turned off, and your sauce will thicken up. Any kind of homemade version of hamburger helper, I always like to serve with a piece of buttered bread on the side, and then also usually a can of peas. Sunday night for dinner, we had vegetable beef soup. This is the same recipe I made like a month or 2 ago when I made vegetable lamb soup. And I wanted to make it with lamb this night, but I went shopping at Kroger this week, and the lamb at Kroger was $9.99 a pound, and I was like, no. And then when I was just at Aldi the other day, I looked at Aldi because I didn't think it was that expensive there, and it was only $6 a pound at Aldi. So yeah, definitely look around if you want lamb. I did like this recipe with the beef, but I definitely prefer it with the lamb. So if you like lamb, it just adds an additional flavor to it, and my family thinks it's delicious. But to start off, I'm just taking the pound of meat. Here I'm using ground beef, but with lamb it would be the same. And you just want to brown it with some salt and pepper. Once my meat was browned, I drained off any excess grease, and then I transferred it to my crock pot where I'm going to start adding in the rest of my ingredients. I diced up 1 large onion. I peeled and diced 2 medium carrots. I diced 3 stalks of celery, and I cut up 2 pounds of the baby gold potatoes. I really like them in this. I really like the gold potatoes used in soup and stuff. I feel like they hold together better. And then I also added in a couple cloves of minced garlic, 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, a teaspoon of dried oregano, 32 ounces of beef broth, and then the original recipe that I followed last time said 32 ounces of tomato juice, but the bottle of tomato juice that I bought is a little bit bigger than that, so I just added in the whole thing, just some extra tomato juice, and it turned out fine. And then I also add in some salt and pepper and some parsley. I gave that all a good mix, and then I cooked this on low for about 6 hours. Just before serving, I like to add in 1 can of corn and 1 can of peas, but this time I left out the corn because Andy was unsure about being able to eat corn or it getting messing with his stitches and his wisdom tooth and all that. So we just left out the corn this time. But usually I would add 1 can of corn and 1 can of peas. And then I just let that sit for 10 minutes and then it's ready to eat. I like to serve this with some nice bread on the side. This was a baguette that I got at Kroger, and it was one of those take and bake. So I just baked it and then we had that on the side. As I said, the soup was really good, but we do prefer it with the lamb. Monday night we had grape jelly and chili sauce meatballs. This is something we love for dinner. It used to always just be a party appetizer, but then we ate it with mashed potatoes one time and we're like, this is delicious. So now we have it for dinner some nights. So I just add about half of a jar of grape jelly to my crock pot with about 1.5 pounds of frozen meatballs and then 1 jar of chili sauce. And I like to rinse the jar of chili sauce with a little bit of water, adds a little bit more liquid, and you get everything out of the jar. And then I just cover this and cook it on low for 4 to 6 hours. It doesn't really need that long, usually about 4 hours, and it's fine. And then we just serve it over some mashed potatoes. I make my mashed potatoes in the Instant Pot, and then we usually do a can of green beans on the side with that as well. Tuesday night, I tried a new recipe from TikTok. This is a 1-pot taco rice casserole thing. So I'm starting off by just browning up 1 pound of ground beef. And then once that's about halfway done, I'm going to add in 1 small onion that I diced, as well as some salt and pepper and some garlic powder. And then I just let that continue cooking until the ground beef is fully cooked. Then I added in a can of drained Rotel. The original recipe said to only use half a can of Rotel, but I was like, ma'am, what am I going to do with half a can of Rotel that's left over? So I just added in the whole thing. We like tomatoes, we like Rotel, so it's it'll be fine. It'll just be extra tomatoey. And then you're going to add in 2 boxes of the Mexican style rice-a-roni, the rice and the seasoning packet. And then you're also going to add in half a stick of butter. Each package of rice calls for 2 tablespoons of butter, so that's half a stick. And you're just going to let that cook until the butter is completely melted. Then you're going to add in 32 ounces of beef broth. Carefully, if your pan is small like mine. I would recommend using a little bit bigger of a pan because mine almost did not fit. But then you're going to just bring this to a boil, and once it comes to a boil, reduce the heat to a medium-low and cover and let it simmer for about 15 minutes. And then after the 15 minutes, just give it a good stir. There might be a little bit of liquid in the pan, but once you stir it around, you kind of it absorbs. And you will taste your rice. Make sure it is done. because sometimes it just isn't quite done all the way. If it's not done all the way, just put the lid back on it and let it cook for a few more minutes. But if it is done, then you can just top this with some cheese. I did some shredded Mexican style cheese from Kroger. So it's like a blend of quesadilla cheese and Monterey Jack and cheddar. I just topped that on it and put a lid on it. This is already off. I turned the heat off, but put the lid on it and let it sit for about 5 minutes to let the cheese get nice and melty. And then this is done. We didn't have anything with this night. You could definitely eat it with some chips or top it with some other like taco toppings like sour cream and lettuce, more tomato, some salsa, whatever. But we just ate it as it was. It was super filling and super delicious. And the leftovers we rolled up in a flour tortilla and ate as burritos, and they were delicious as well. Wednesday night, I tried another recipe that I saw on TikTok. This is Marry Me Chicken Tortellini. I have made Marry Me Chicken before, and it was delicious, so I knew I wanted to try it with some tortellini. I'm starting off with some chicken breasts that I cut up into bite-sized pieces. I have that in a Ziploc bag, and to that, I am adding half a cup of flour, about half a teaspoon of salt, and half a teaspoon of pepper, and half a teaspoon of garlic. And then I'm just going to shake that around and make sure my chicken gets nice and coated really well. Then in my pot, I'm heating up some oil. I'm doing 2 tablespoons of the sun-dried tomato oil because we're going to be using those sun-dried tomatoes. So it just helps give it a little bit of extra flavor, and it's like free oil you can use. So about 2 tablespoons of that and 2 tablespoons of butter. And then once it gets heated, you're going to add your chicken in. I try to do it in one even layer, but it didn't quite work out because there was a lot of chicken. So just cook that until it's fully cooked and browned, and then you can remove it from the pan. Then I added in about 2 tablespoons of minced garlic and 1/4 cup of sun-dried tomatoes, and I just let that cook for about 30 seconds. And then I added in 1 cup of chicken broth and 1 cup of heavy cream. And then I brought that to a nice like simmer, and once it started to bubble, I added in 1 cup of Parmesan cheese and half a teaspoon of oregano, half a teaspoon of thyme, and some red pepper flakes. I made a mistake here and I used pre-shredded Parmesan cheese. I know better, and I still continue to take the shortcut, even though I know that the Parmesan cheese just does not melt right in a cream sauce if you use the pre-shredded stuff. So take a tip from me. Always shred your own Parmesan cheese if you're using it in a sauce like this. It just likes to clump together if you use the pre-shredded stuff. It still tasted good, but it was a little clumpy. So once I had that like as melted and incorporated into the cream sauce as I could, then I added in 1 19-ounce bag of cheese tortellini, stirred that around really well, and then I covered it and let that cook for about 5 minutes until the tortellini was done. Then I just stirred my chicken back in and let that sit, turned off for about 5 minutes, and then the sauce like thickened up really well. And we just had that by itself this night. I planned on doing a salad, but did not feel like cutting up lettuce and all that, so we just had that by itself. And again, this was really filling and really delicious. Everybody loved it and said that they wanted it again. And finally, the last meal of the week was tuna casserole, which is definitely a family favorite. So I start off by boiling about 8 ounces of egg noodles in a pot of salted water. And then once those are done, I add them to my casserole dish. And then I add in 2 cans of drained tuna, 1 can of cream of chicken soup, and then I add some milk to that can, about halfway full, stir it around, get all the cream of chicken out of that can, and then add that to the casserole dish along with a little bit of salt and some pepper. Give that a good mix, and then once I have that like mixed together, then I add in some cheese. I never measure cheese. I just add in maybe about half a cup of cheese and then put some more cheese on top. And then this goes in the oven on 350 for about 25 minutes. Tuna casserole is something that I've been making probably the entire 5 years on this channel. Andy showed me how to make it. I ate it some growing up as a kid, but as a kid I didn't really like tuna, so I'm glad my kids like tuna because we love tuna casserole. And then some people mix peas into their tuna casserole. We prefer to do ours on the side, so I made a can of peas to go with that. But that is going to be it for this What's for Dinner. If you made it here all the way to the end, leave me a smiley face emoji down in the comments, and also let me know how long you have been here watching my videos. Did you find me through What's for Dinner videos? They are my most popular videos, but I was making videos before What's for Dinners. But What's for Dinner is definitely my longest running series. 5 years. I'm impressed. Never thought I would be doing it that long. But it motivates me to cook more for my family and to eat at home and save money. So I will continue doing them as long as I need the motivation for that. And I love that it helps motivate y'all too. But I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great week, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.